Good morning, everyone, and congratulations, Dan.
Thank you very much.
You're absolutely a game changer. Have done a lot in your career, and I want you to just trace how you got into this line of business, of course, prominently featuring your double Bruin degrees here, both undergraduate and MBA.
Well, that's where it started. It really started here. I grew up being a big sports fan and was at UCLA, and being here on campus as an undergraduate can only nurture your love of sports with football and basketball in particular, which I just fell in love with. And then after undergraduate, as was mentioned in the opening, I went to work as an accountant. So I studied economics here and really, fell in love with business and finance, but always still had the love of sports. So worked in accounting for a while and was anxious to get back to here at Anderson and come to graduate school here. And being at Anderson really gave me the opportunity to think more broadly about my career and learn about different disciplines and interact with a lot of different people and different industries. And actually, I'll never forget it, in our first year, Mitch Kupchak, who's an Anderson alum, was speaking, and that really got me thinking about, wow, and why I'm here at Anderson learning about all these new businesses. I know my sort of proficient in finance, but it'd be great to branch into a different industry and something that I really love and enjoy. So Mitch kind of inspired me a little bit, and on campus throughout doing my job search, I really kind of broadened things a little bit and tried to look at a bunch of different industries, and got a lot of rejections.
I understand that you sent out quite a few letters.
Yeah, I did. I sent out.
And the response was?
Yeah, probably hundreds of letters, because there was I know there's a lot of young people in the room, but there was no internet back then, so there was letter writing campaigns that you would go on and books you'd have to read to find out who to contact. So I did a lot of those and just have hundreds and hundreds of rejections, and I actually I have it in my office now, my book of rejection letters. It's with great pride. But there was one slight nibble from the Clippers, so I aggressively followed that up and joined them in 1995 in between my first and second years, and had to try to fight through the second year of graduate school while working full time, which was a bit of a challenge. But I was very lucky to get the opportunity. And
from there, it became ultimately AEG. And when you talk about Game Changer Awards, this AEG is really a game changer. It's very vertically integrated, starting with the AXS ticket platform to ownership of 120 elite concert venues, arenas, real estate like major hotels like LA Live, ownership of 12 major sports teams, including the Kings and Galaxy, and of course being the second largest concert and artist promoter in the world, including Justin Bieber, Taylor
Your
Swift.
favorite, right?
My favorite. Dan and I were talking about that. I actually love the rendition of Justin on Saturday Night Live. But how did this bricks and mortar and content integration evolve? And it's a remarkable integration.
Yeah, it really was a bit of an unfolding. I wish I could say we launched this grand strategy all at once, but it really wasn't. It really started with the purchase of the Kings. And at the time, that's all it was. And the company was so small. We were down at the Forum. There were probably 35 full-time employees, and today we have 35,000 full-time employees. And it started with that team and a dream to build an arena in downtown Los Angeles. And the strategy really unfolded from there, as we learned, all the businesses that you named off about owning sports teams and being a concert promoter. I could probably honestly tell you that being in any one of those businesses by itself might not be the best business to be in. Owning just a sports team is not the most compelling business. Owning just
Unless
an arena,
you win.
If you win every year.
Yes.
Peter will be here.
Yes.
He certainly knows about that.
So far.
But just being in the sports business or just being in the concert business can be a very difficult business. But our strategy, after we saw what happened in downtown LA with Staples Center and the development of LA Live, getting into the concert business and sort of merging the real estate and the content and now technology as of late. But initially it was real estate and content that came together. And we found that can be a compelling business model. Building an arena, having music content, having sports content, having a promotions business, having a ticketing company. If you can weave all of those together, there's a compelling business there.
And what advantage do you have over those that are, for example, just concert promoters or just venue owners?
Well, we have so many different revenue streams available to us. So when we're bidding on shows, we're not just looking at, well, how many tickets can we sell? We're looking at our hotels, our real estate, our restaurants, our sponsorship business. And I think that gives us a distinct advantage when we're bidding on big events like the Olympics or the All-Star Game. We have so many different revenue streams that we can tap into that I think gives us a distinct advantage, and it takes a lot of capital to get to that point.
But it's also the integration across these platforms. I mean, talk about the Justin Bieber, my favorite, example of the CD launch that he just did.
Yeah, they came to us a few months ago, Justin's manager, and we've been their longtime tour promoter. We've promoted all of his international tours since he went out on the road many years ago. And he came to us, and they were in this kind of, I can't believe I'm talking about like a battle between One Direction and Justin Bieber. I'm like 46 years old, and so he came to us, and they had their album release on the same day, and they really wanted to win the day. And his manager came to us, and he says, it's neck and neck. How can you help us sell albums? What can we do? He goes, you've got all of these assets, you've got all over the world, you've got arenas, you've got advertising. What ideas can you come up with to help us sell albums? So we sat in a room and we threw out probably 50 terrible ideas, and then stumbled upon one that was pretty good, which is, we own a ticketing company. We have the arena, we have LA Live. What if Justin was in town? What if we bring him by and you do sort of an intimate, acoustic concert, and you bundle together the album with the ticket, which is pretty unique, and most ticketing companies would have a hard time deploying something like that and implementing it. But we have our own ticketing company. Like days. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a matter of days that we were able to bundle those together. And then we said, we'll put one show on. It originally started saying, well, we have movie theaters. What if we did something in the movie theaters? And then we said, well, geez, why don't we do it in the arena? So we then said, well, let's start with a show, and maybe we can sell 20,000 albums. And then that went on sale and sold out, and said, well, let's add another show. And then we sold another one out, and then third show, sold another one out. So he came, he spent the afternoon. There was 20,000 screaming kids in an arena, and he sold, I think it was 70,000 albums in one day, and he ended up winning.
And of course, this bundling of the CDs with the tickets, with the venue, with the promotion skills that you have was a unique advantage.
Yeah, that's what his manager said. He says, there's no other company that can do this.
So let's shift to talking about the transformational impact of technology on the sports and entertainment business. I mean, we're going to have Peter Guber here in a little while, and of course, Peter is, on the one hand, a sports owner and a good team at that, but he also owns a VR company, a virtual reality, and when they're building the stadium, and I'm sure he'll talk about that, up in San Francisco, they're going to integrate VR into the entire experience of being there and viewing the game. So, how do you think technology is going to give you new opportunities in your lines of business or create new lines of business?
I mean, it's revolutionized the business side of our business, of sports and entertainment and music and venues. And when you think about technology in terms of on the field or on the ice or on the court, it's obvious what the technological advances have been since I got in the business over 20 years ago. It's amazing in terms of tracking athletes' performance and monitoring heart rates, and it changes the way we scout players and how we sign players. That we could spend an entire day just talking about the advances and the physical monitoring and the biomedical technological advances that have happened. But really, I'm
going to put a plug in here for what I hope will be our new degree in business data analytics. That's exactly what Dan was talking about.
Absolutely.
Using all that data.
And even more so, I mean, that's really, as a business person, that's what I'm focused on more than anything, is the impact of technology on our business. And there's really a couple of areas that I think it hits on that really hit home for someone who's running a team or running a venue, and that is what technological advances have happened that can enhance the fan experience. So we spend a lot of time, whether it's at Staples Center or at the Coachella Festival, about how technology can enhance the experience. We have beaconing technology that we build into our venues now. So when you have your mobile app and your proximity, they can send messages about merchandise offerings or food and beverage. But it really starts with the app and digital ticketing. I mean, that has revolutionized the experience of the in-venue experience and the app in general. I mean, they've evolved so much, and we see now a real evolution in venue apps, and we've spent a lot of time and money developing a venue app. So it's not just understanding what the statistics are and seeing replays on the ice or on the field, but how do I order food and beverage? How do I have unique content? How do I know where the nearest restroom is? What other offerings, what else is coming up in the building? What other events are coming up? So we're deploying a lot of resources into developing that.
And is it mainly from the ticketing platform that you have so much consumer data?
Absolutely. I mean, that has changed. Ticketing in general has changed. And if I think about 20 years ago, how we used to think about ticketing, and we would, when we're making our business decisions and making our pricing decisions, it was so archaic. I think about sitting in 20 years ago with our head of ticket sales at a game, and you're looking up in the stands and you say, well, that section's kind of empty, maybe we should reduce prices there, and that section's full, maybe we should increase prices there. I mean, it was that archaic. And over time, it evolved to, we can, we're not tearing tickets anymore, we're scanning barcodes. So now I know, okay, well, how many people are in the building and who is showing up and who's not, so we can then call people and say, why aren't you using your tickets? Now, this is in the late 90s, and we thought, oh my God, this is the greatest advance ever. Aliens have landed, and I can tell who's in the building and who's not. But you flash forward now, and it's such a different ballgame now. We had our annual King's pricing meeting last week, and we look at the richness and the quality and the quantity of the data that we get now. It's not just how many people are in the building, and did the person who purchased that ticket, is someone actually in the building? It is light years ahead of that now, and the data that we look at is understanding what other events they buy, what are their preferences, the secondary market, who is posting their tickets for resale, how many times is that person actually at the game versus is somebody else at the game, what is their attendance rate, what are their other likes and dislikes, and the data now is so rich. And the secondary data in particular, okay, so that ticket was $125, but it changed hands 4 times and it ended up selling for $250.
And how do you use that information?
We use it much better than we used to in making our pricing decisions. And now we don't have to guess as much. We would send out invoices and pray that we would do a 93% renewal, and we wouldn't know. We wouldn't know if our pricing was right. But now we have real-time feedback on what is that seat actually worth, and it enables us to make the best pricing decisions.
And how dynamic is your pricing? At what point do you change the pricing before an event?
It's continuously throughout the on-sale up until the time of the event. We have the ability through our ticketing platform to go in and change prices and get data, and there are some great companies out there, great tech companies out there that monitor the secondary market, so you can see what is that ticket really worth, and we can go in real time and change one seat to a different price every hour if we wanted to.
So just tell us, because next time we go to Coachella, should we wait till the last minute in terms of dynamic pricing?
Coachella's a different animal. You just hope you get tickets for that. That one is an absolute machine. But Coachella's a great example of the use of technology also. I mean, that actually uses a different platform, and those of you, I assume many of you have gone, you get your RFID bracelet. There's mandatory registration, so we know exactly who you are and where you are, and whenever you walk to a different stage, you have to put your wrist up to an access control system. So we have great data. We know who you are and where you are. It's a little Big Brother, but we're using it to enhance your experience, not to get into your personal business.
Yeah, and are you going to go to a third weekend with Coachella?
2 was pretty big, although we did sell both out very, very quickly. So
yes.
there actually was enough demand to go to a third weekend, but I think we'll probably stick to 2 for now.
So can you tell us about the next big thing that's going to be the integration of technology with some new content or some new bricks and mortar opportunity? Yeah,
the bricks and mortar opportunities are great for our company, and we've had, they are very capital intensive. And the smallest one we have is maybe $500 million investment. In LA, we have a $2.5 billion investment, and we continue to seek out new opportunities and further develop existing projects that we have. We have 2 big projects in Europe that we're continuing to expand, where we'll break ground this year on those. But our focus really has shifted a lot to technology, because it's just we can't take our model and deploy it to every market. And we've seen a number of them they've come to LA Live and they say, oh, this is great, I want to do one of these. And I don't want to name cities that have done them that haven't worked, but there have been a number of smaller cities where it seems great and you see, oh, there's restaurants and bars and nightclubs and movie theaters and a 1,000-room hotel. I want one of these. I want one of these. But in city XYZ, it may not work that way. So we continue to look for opportunities for the big projects. We have one that, I mentioned in Europe, we have Berlin and London where we're continuing to expand our projects. We're looking in Paris.
And these are mega projects.
These are big districts,
yeah.
big entertainment districts. But really our investment focus has shifted a lot to the technology side because we only want to be in the right markets, and we don't want to go to Des Moines, Iowa to build one of these. I can say I was born in Des Moines, Iowa, so I can badmouth Des Moines, Iowa. But we don't want to build an LA Live in Des Moines, Iowa. So we're shifting a lot to technology as a way of growth.
So when we think about technology developments that will soon simulate the real experience, and we know that live is diminishing in terms of at least traditional TV broadcasting, even ESPN subscriptions in terms of live TV are declining. What do you see as the future of live television, whether it's going to be sustainable even in this era of anytime, any device that you can get content? And will liveness still stay current in sports?
Well, Peter and I talk about this a lot, and there is such a shift in the way people consume entertainment, and millennials in particular. For Coachella, when we talk about the impact of technology, you really see it on the sponsorship and broadcast side. So we have a huge partnership with YouTube, and they're really our primary media outlet for Coachella. And we had over 40 million views and 1.5 million hours on YouTube watching, which is unbelievable. And this last year, for the first time ever, the majority of it was mobile. And I think when you look at the traditional sports model of doing big, regional sports networks deals and cable deals, I think that's going to be tested. I think it's going to be tested in the coming years. Now, there's always an interesting tension between the league and the national rights and the team and the local rights. And the regional sports network enabled that, because you could go and you could sell in your market, and we could be on Fox Sports West or Time Warner Cable, and then the league could still do their big NBC deal. But now with program being distributed via mobile, it's like you said, it's anywhere, anytime, anyhow. So I think we're going to see a real tension between the leagues and the local ownership, and you'll see things like these over-the-top proposals or pay-per-view. And as ESPN viewership, or at least subscription, declines and people consuming in different ways, that's going to have a real impact on teams. And a team owner would always see their rights fees as just sort of this never-ending, ascending revenue stream, which has become the largest revenue stream. And I think that there's going to be a real gut check moment for some of the rights deals that are coming up in the coming years.
And you think that the switch to alternative modes of transmission to mobile will not compensate for the media rights that they're used to?
I think it's going to be difficult. I think it's going to be hard for them. I mean, we've seen it in the music industry and what that has done, and the way music is distributed now compared to the way it was distributed 20 years ago, and how that has changed the music industry. Now, I still believe in live sports content because it is something that you have to see live and you have to see it now. So I do believe that there will always be value there, whether it's distributed via RSN or via some alternate media. I think will be unfolding.
Now, you mentioned music, and the way artists get compensated has certainly changed a lot, and it's no longer through albums. And I was telling Dan, as I drive in the morning, I'm hearing all of these rock artists in their 50s and 60s and even 70s, the Rolling Stones, that are on these mega concert tours. And why? And how has that affected AEG?
I mean, in a lot of ways, it's been great for our business because so much, I don't know the statistics off the top of my head, but the 80-20 rule switched. It used to be that 80% of the earnings would come from publishing and from selling albums, and 20% was from live touring, and really the live touring was just a way to sort of promote your album, and that was really the revenue stream that you were focused on. But now, for someone who's in the live music business, it's great for our company because artists make almost nothing now on recorded music. I mean, even the example we talked about earlier with Justin Bieber, where he won that album release week. I think he sold, I forget, it was 400,000 or 500,000.
That was until Adele arrived.
And she crushed it. Yes. Absolutely destroyed it. That's sort of the exception because she crosses over everywhere. But at the time, Bieber had sold, I don't know, 400,000 or 500,000 albums, which is, when you think about it, is a lot. But in the grand scheme of things, that's really not that much. I mean, how much money can you possibly make off of selling 400,000 CDs? It's not that much. So now artists are relying on live touring, and it's caused them to have to do more of it. And like you said, the older artists.
And that's almost the only source of revenue.
It is by far the largest source of revenue. So it's been fantastic for our touring business, our venue business, our clubs and theaters, because we have a lot of arenas and stadiums, but we also have clubs and theaters, and that reliance on the live gate has really driven that business in the last 10 or 15 years. So it's been great for our business. But the artists that really resonate are some of these older artists that you talk about. And we have the Rolling Stones tour, and that does unbelievable business. We have the Who on tour, and they've done unbelievable. You guys have probably never heard of either of those bands, but big bands back in the old days.
Born, yes.
But they are still on the road, and they're doing enormous business, along with the young artists, the Taylor Swifts and the Biebers and Katy Perrys.
So let's switch now into a couple of different topics. And I'm going to go to you soon for questions, so please think about them and don't be shy. You're in this mega business, and you report to one owner. Mm-hmm. One owner. You're not in a public company. You don't have quarterly reports. You don't have shareholders and activist investors. That sounds good, by the way. But are there any? Talk about how you think about your role in this current structure versus what it would be if you were in a publicly traded company.
Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot with other people in different teams who have different structures. We debate it, and we always get together and say the grass is always greener, and oh, you have it so great, you report to a board, and they always say, oh, you have it so great because you have one owner that you report to. And there's pros and cons. I think at the end of the day, I think I probably prefer it this way. The people who I think have some of the most difficult jobs, you talk about reporting to a corporate board, I sort of equate that to like one of the commissioners of the leagues, because they effectively report to a board, which is the owners of each of these teams. So a Gary Bettman or a Don Garber, in some ways, I think have some of the most difficult jobs, because they have to report to 30 people, and you got 30 bosses and 30 opinions, and balancing that and managing that seems pretty complicated to me. Now, when you have one, there's some drawbacks to that also. But we're in a fortunate situation. We have an entrepreneurial owner, someone who has capital to invest, someone who loves the business. The company's performing well, so he has a lot of faith and confidence in our management team. And
he's willing to grow.
He's absolutely willing to grow. He's an old wildcatter oil and gas man, so he loves to drill oil wells and take chances and take risks and be entrepreneurial, which is great for us because it enables us to make mistakes and screw up, and he gives us another crack at it. But I think at the end of the day, if I had to pick, I kind of like the situation we're in. I mean, you're sort of at the whims of one person, but if you get the right person, it can be a good recipe.
You're also an incredibly visible employer, role model, partner in the community. How do you think about, and you're the CEO, the responsibility that you have to engage with the community? How do you engage with the community? And how do you establish a code of conduct for everyone in your organization? And if violated, which sometimes happens in sports teams, for example, how do you handle it?
The style of our company is we're a very open and transparent company. So when you talk about code of conduct, we have one, and the most we can do is it's so high profile. You just have to be open and honest with people and admit when you've made mistakes and take action to correct that. And we've had a number of those, and even recently, even last year, we had a number of sort of player conduct issues on. We've had them on several of our teams, and one in particular. And the most we can do is sort of own up to it, understand that we're not perfect and we make mistakes, and we take action to remedy it and put programs in place for what's expected if you work for AEG or you work with the LA Kings, and what are the expectations. And if you can't meet those expectations, then it might not be the right place. And we've had to say goodbye to a couple of players, which can be difficult, but people, our general manager for the Kings always says it's like you need to know what it means to be a king. And he'll sometimes say, we will get a player, and it might not even be conduct related. It happened this year, where there's a player that we trade for, and he sees him, and he'll come and see me. He goes, he's not a king. So we have a pretty high bar that we set, and there's a lot of expectations. There's great things that come along with it, but there's expectations that come with it too, and we have to hold people accountable, and we don't apologize for it.
I've been impressed, though, that you've tried to get ahead of the curve in educating the players and all of your associates in AAG of how to deal with some of the pressures.
Yeah, and there's a lot. I mean, we ask a lot of our athletes, and these are young men and women who have maybe come into a lot of wealth early in their life, and we need to teach them about conduct and teaching them about what's expected and how to manage your money and how to deal with the media and how to manage your life and be responsible. Be responsible, so we're talking about technology with social media. I mean, that is a whole segment of training that we do with our players now, is about the responsible use of social media. And there's a lot of pressures for these young men and women throughout our organization that they have to live up to.
And you engage with the community. Obviously, you're a big partner in the community, and Los Angeles is incredibly diverse, and you do things to advance that.
We have a great team of people at AEG, and our head of our external affairs, Martha Saucedo, a UCLA alum who is here somewhere, oversees all of that for our company, and it's critical for us. And it's not just in Los Angeles, but it's really anywhere that we do business. We want to be engaged and involved and embrace the communities where we do business, because it's good. It's not just the right thing to do, but it's good business also. So we have tremendous outreach in Los Angeles in particular, and we have a commitment in our company from top to bottom to service. Everybody does it. I do it. All of our employees do it.
Dan is on our board of visitors, so he's in a sense my boss too.
See, like having all those bosses is a problem.
Right.
It's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
But it's something that we take very seriously, and it's part of our culture. You know, it's really something that, you know, it's funny at AEG there's kind of a self-selection process that happens, and people at AEG have been there for years and years and decades, even though it's a relatively young company. It's just only 20 years old. And people always ask, well, how do you find these people? And I think about that a lot, and I do think we self-select. I think there's a certain type of person that wants to work for us, and it's someone they're team-oriented, they love working in groups, they love being engaged in the community, they like to work hard, and they love sports, and they love entertainment, and they stay around for years and decades, and we all do it. It's part of our family culture.
And for you personally, I mean, you became CEO in 2012, I believe?
13, yeah.
13. And this is a very visible gig, and you could be only as good as last night's score,
Yes.
or whether somebody had good parking at the Staples Center.
Yeah.
And it can be like this.
It is.
How do you deal with the pressures of public scrutiny and social media, which can sometimes be very brutal?
You know, there's a couple ways, and I made the decision early on, and you're exactly right. You become the target of sort of public scrutiny. But sort of made the decision early on, and people would come to me early on in 2013, and they said, "Oh, you're too approachable. You gotta, you gotta steer clear, and you gotta stay over here, and you gotta stay in this lane and not that lane." And that just doesn't that's not who I am. It's not who we are. So we deal with it head on, and it happens every day, because somebody's going to have a bad experience, or somebody's going to be upset about the team's performance. So you got to develop a little bit of a thick skin, and you have to be willing to admit your mistakes and take corrective action and change things. So we were fortunate, since we're in LA, we won championships in 2012 with both the Kings and the Galaxy, and everything was great. And in 13 we fell short, and we had to change some things, and we had to.
And then you won it again.
And then in 2014 we won the MLS Cup again, and we won the Stanley Cup again. And then in 2015 we didn't. And in 2015 we really had bad seasons. The Kings didn't make the playoffs at all, and the Galaxy was bounced very, very early. So I heard it again, and you have to be committed to getting better. And we made more changes, and we made changes in the front office. We made changes on our rosters, while still committing. I mean, we have plans. I don't want to make it sound like we sort of knee-jerk react to things, because we have a vision for our teams and how they should be structured, and the pieces that we need to have in place. but we also know where we need to make changes on the fly. And hopefully 16 is off to a better start. The Kings we're at the All-Star break, and we're in first place in the division, so hopefully that holds up, and hopefully the Galaxy will be back where they belong to.
And you keep it separate from you personally.
You have to. You have to, because when you're dealing with the passion of sports fans, people have such an allegiance to their teams, and they feel so strongly about it that sometimes all sort of etiquette flies out the window with some of the emails you get, or when I'm at all the games, and I'm in the same spot every game, and people see me and they'll come up and tell me what they think. But you got to take it in stride, and you got to, I'm not going to change who the company is or who I am, and we're gonna stay the same way, and admit when we make mistakes and make changes where we have to.
So let's move just a little bit to global. I mean, you're an amazingly globally distributed company with major projects all over the world. First, including now in Brazil for the Olympics. Are you holding your breath?
A little bit.
We'll talk about the Olympics in a moment for LA. But first of all, I mean, one of your hallmarks is that you go in and globalize. You're a global company, but you do take into account certain global cultures and market differences. So talk about how you navigate that.
Yeah, we have to be really careful when we expand into, whether it's in Europe or Asia. We have an arena network that we've developed over the last several years in China. We have a number of them throughout Europe, in London and Berlin and Stockholm and Hamburg and Paris. And it's a tricky process with us, because we don't want to be sort of the American company that just goes and stamps out sort of the American way of doing things in all of these markets.
And you probably wouldn't get approval.
And we wouldn't get approval, and it wouldn't be successful either.
Right.
So we create partnerships, or we create a management team that is locally based, that has local roots, and we are mindful and respectful of the way that they do business, the way they entertain, the way they consume sports, entertainment, and music. But at the same time, there's a balance there. You can't just go and do things the way that they do them, because oftentimes they want it done differently. And London is the best example of that, where arenas in London were antiquated. The last one was built, 100 years ago at Wembley. And you go there, and you go to London, you talk to the Brits, and they're not happy with it. So you have to strike that balance between things that work, which they love, whether it's from the US or from Europe. As long as it works, that's really the primary thing that they care about, but still being respectful of what are the food tastes, how do they entertain, when do they come to events, when do they like to bring their clients, and how do they like to entertain their clients. So it's a balance of deploying our best practices, but doing it in a respectful way.
And do you tend to hire local talent in each?
Always.
Even at the helm?
At the helm we do, although that has rotated somewhat, depending on where we at in the life cycle of a project. And sometimes we have people from our U.S., our best and brightest in the U.S. will go over and do a tour of duty in Europe. But most of the time, they're local hires.
And let's talk about Brazil, because you had the FIFA, the stadium experience there with the World Cup, and now
the Olympics.
Up.
Our model there is there's challenges in Brazil, obviously, and our model there is a little bit different. Most of the activity that we have there is through our management company. So a lot of the venues that we have, we construct, we build, we own, and we operate them forever. And there are other companies or other municipalities that come to us and say, you know what, we're building these stadiums, and we could sure use your expertise in helping us run them and book them and operate them. So in Brazil, that's the model that we have there. So we don't have capital deployed in Brazil, but we are managing a wide variety of venues, and there are some challenges there. And there's a lot of talk, whether it's the Olympics or the World Cup, about what happens to these facilities after the World Cup, after the Olympics. And that's sort of where we can come in and add some value, because we are in the music business, we are in the content business. So where we can hopefully play a value-added role is by bringing them content post-Olympics or post-World Cup.
And that's already in your planning cycle?
Yes. That's part of our pitch as a venue services company and as a facility management company, is we have this sort of toolbox and resources that we can bring.
And of course, that factors into your decision before you go in there in terms of what your capital expenditures. So talk about that side of it when you're planning or deciding whether to go for a project or not. And you did that with the NFL here.
Yes, we did. and
then didn't.
and then we didn't, and then
Yes.
we withdrew from
Yeah,
it.
so talk about how you think about those projects, and obviously you have to think very long term.
We do, and the first thing we always think about is it's market driven. And what is the strength of the market? And our belief and our owner's belief is that if you can own, we're an asset-based company. I mean, we have content, and we have teams, and we have technology, we have distribution, we have a TV channel, but at our heart, we are an asset-based real estate company. And when we make those decisions, we think long and hard about the markets that we're going to be in. So I mentioned we're probably not going to be building Des Moines live, and that's not where we deploy our capital. So our belief is that if you have the best assets in the best markets, that is the winning combination. And then we augment the network with some of these less capital intensive, where maybe we invest some money or no money at all, but we still round out our network to that 120 venue count. So in Los Angeles, that's a big market for us. It's our home. We have close to $3 billion invested in Los Angeles between Staples Center, LA Live, the StubHub Center, Kings, Galaxy. So that's a core investment for us. We have smaller investments elsewhere. You know, we have some invested in a market like Kansas City, where we partnered with the city and we invested capital. It's a good market. We're probably not going to spend $1 billion in Kansas City, but it rounds out our network, and it's a high quality market. And then we manage venues in Pittsburgh and San Antonio and in Brooklyn, and we round out our network there. I would love to invest more capital in New York. That's been one that, as our company, that we were looking for the right opportunity, and we're continuing to expand there, and we're looking for an opportunity to plant a bigger flag there. We're launching a festival there this summer on the music side. We have a couple of clubs, a couple of theaters, but I would love to spend billions of dollars in New York if we could find the right opportunity.
So I'm going to go back to LA, because you talked about it as a very important market for you and a very important sports and entertainment market in general. And here we are looking at the Olympics. And you know, there are tensions on both sides. People that are saying this would be the best thing for the city, and then others that say that a city never emerges whole. Mm-hmm. So first put your citizen hat on as an Angelino, mm-hmm. living a mile from UCLA. What would you say as a citizen, and then what's AEG's upside out of this?
Well, as a citizen, I think the LA opportunity is unique. And when you look at some of the other cities that bid, that literally have to build all of these facilities and spend billions and billions of dollars, I think you talked about some of the scrutiny they get about, geez, it just doesn't pencil out. And I think there's probably some truth to that. And a lot of these facilities, I alluded to trying to book them after the fact. It's not always, in a lot of these cities, it's not always successful. And they end up with these sort of white elephant venues that spend billions of dollars on that are vacant. And it's very difficult to justify that economically. I think what makes LA unique is the in-place asset base that we have with all of the arenas and stadiums and theaters
and dorms on
and
UCLA's
dorms on this very
campus.
campus,
Yes.
which was announced earlier
Yeah.
this week, which I think is a great.
Yes.
I mean, that's a perfect example.
They only put the press over at USC.
The press
We're
of
the
USC,
athletes.
you get the athletes here, which is perfect.
Yeah.
But I think that as a citizen, I could look at that bid and say, you know what, the city is not going to be signing up for billions of dollars worth of venues that are not going to have a use. They're going to use the Coliseum, and they're going to use, you know, Staples Center and all of the venues that are in place. And I think on that basis, it can really be a positive thing for the city.
And then what would AEG's upside be? Obviously, we'd be using some of your venues.
Yes, Casey and I, who's the champion, the head of the local
Casey
organizing
Wasserman.
committee, Casey Wasserman,
Big UCLA guy.
huge alum, and I've
I'm
spent a lot of time.
surprised he let anything go to USC.
Well, he got the athletes here. I think that was the important thing. So he let
Yeah.
let the media and the families go
Yes.
to SC.
Yes.
But he and I have spent a lot of time talking about it, and they have identified a number of our venues that they will announce as part of their plan, utilizing, you know, their plan is to utilize the Convention Center and Staples Center and StubHub Center and Microsoft Theater.
And my guess is you'd wrap a lot more around those venues beyond athletic events.
Yeah, it would be the headquarters, you know, downtown LA, and our hotel would be sort of the downtown head. There's a
Plus,
couple
you'd
of
suddenly have lots of concerts in during that period.
Of course.
Yes.
But, and we have experience with a lot of the different Olympic Games. We, at the O2 in London, we had basketball and gymnastics there. And then when the Olympics were in China, we had basketball at our arena there. So they can be successful, but I think having the asset base in place is the key to making a pencil out for a city.
And are you convinced that for Los Angeles, that asset base is sufficient to offset any losses?
I think it is. I've seen sort of their deployment map about what events they put where and where they put the media center and where they have the events. And I mean, Los Angeles has sprawl. I mean, it's a big, diverse geographical city. So there's different pieces around in the South Bay and downtown and in the Valley and on the West Side. And they have these clusters, they call them, where they have a handful of venues in it. So downtown you'll have the Galen Center and Staples Center and LA Live and Microsoft Theater and the Convention Center, and then you'll have a South Bay cluster with StubHub Center and Long Beach and a few other venues. So I think it could work. I think it could work. I don't know if they'll get picked. I don't know if LA will be selected. I'm not. The IOC is a complicated beast, but
what are the odds? I mean, who are you betting on here?
Oh, geez, that's a great question. Although I'll tell you, I think that the housing issue for the LA bid was the big issue. And when they did not have a housing solution, and they were saying, well, maybe we'll go on the LA River and spend $2 billion and build an Olympic village there. I think if they had not resolved that, I think that could have been the Achilles heel for the bid. So I think now that they've secured housing, I think their chances are much better.
Okay, my last question, and then there are microphones here, these red things, that we will ask you to go to, or we'll hand that to you for you to ask questions. So my last question, of course, is about MBAs. And the question is, what role do MBAs or can MBAs play in your business or in the sports and entertainment business in general? And we see it as a growing role.
Well, I almost wish I was coming out of graduate school now, because I feel like the opportunities are so much more than when I was here. I mean, the truth is when I came out and landed a job in sports, I got pretty lucky, because the number of roles that were within sports organizations, and those of you who've researched it know that these teams are it's very small organizations. You have very, very small department, just a handful of people. I mentioned the Kings, we had 30 people in the front office. And that includes everybody who sells tickets and coaches and PR people and marketing people. They're just very, very small organizations. So it's really hard to break in. And traditionally, coming out of school, if you wanted to work for a sports team, really the only entry-level position was in ticket sales. And that was really, and that's why you see a lot of the great leaders in sports today are on the sales and marketing side. And they're great, visionary people who came up through the ranks, and they sold tickets, and then they sold sponsorship, and then they became the chief marketing officer, and then they became the president. And that was sort of the path. So I was a bit of an odd duck that came out in the finance, because there was only 2 or 3 people in a finance department. So I targeted that position, but there are really only 30 of those jobs in the world. But what's happened with technology is teams are investing in analytics. So now I see it in our different sports teams that we are relying a lot on people, and young people in particular, who are technologically savvy, who can utilize the different platforms that are available and really focus on analytics, and it's not sales related. So I didn't have a sales background, so I would have been a terrible ticket salesperson. But for the fact that I had that opportunity, I would be doing something else now. But if I were coming out of school today, I would be working as an analyst for a sports team. And it would be I would love to do that. I would love to work on pricing models and inventory management systems and utilization, not necessarily on the team side, tracking shots and ice time and possession and those kind of statistics, but really on the business side. And we rely, and I see it now when we make business decisions now, we look to our analytics group on supporting our business decisions, and that really I think is fertile ground for MBAs who have more of a analytical or financial background as opposed to just the sales and marketing background, which used to be sort of the only open door.
Well, and you, of course, are heavy in real estate, so presumably that would be another area, financial analysis of these projects.
Absolutely. And real estate is big, and a lot of those, there's not as much entry level, but people who have experience in those areas, whether you're an accountant or a lawyer or a real estate expert, there are definitely more opportunities now than there were, because people are looking at that model and they're, I think, realizing what we talked about at the beginning, which is, geez, owning a standalone sports team might not be the best thing in the world, but I can name 10 different projects now that have an arena as an anchor and an entire retail district around it. They're doing one in Sacramento, they're doing one in Edmonton that's going to be opening next year, and these are great projects that really didn't exist 20 years ago.
And all over the world. We were just in Spain, we're seeing the Real Madrid project
Yes.
in the same way. Yeah.
Real Madrid, we're working on one in Rome, and we have a project that's opening up in just 2 months in Las Vegas, which is an arena project right on the Strip in Las Vegas, and there's development going on around that with MGM, and they're building a retail entertainment district around it, and a theater and shops and retail, and it really is it's a new location-based destination.
Okay, if we can turn the lights up and have you ask questions. Questions? Anybody?
Oh, here we go.
There we go. Thank you. Let's
This is
start.
cool.
And if you don't mind introducing yourself as you speak.
Those things are cool.
Yeah.
Speak directly into the folks.
Whoa.
Very good.
Introduce yourself,
Not bad.
please.
My name is Jordan. I'm a UCLA applicant, actually. I know a lot of other teams. I used to live in DC, and they have like these season ticket cards. And you can accrue points and get discounts, all that kind of stuff. Is that something you guys have considered for your teams, the Kings, the Galaxy, whoever? And is that something you consider in the future? And what are the benefits and drawbacks that you see with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's when we were talking about the mobile app, because that's really the platform that we would use as we would utilize our app for our season ticket holders. And it's absolutely something that we want to implement for our teams, especially in LA, where we have so many different rewards, because we don't just have the in-arena application, but we have everything around it. So that's one of the things that we're investing in with our mobile app is a loyalty program. And it's great for retention. It's a great reward system, and it enables you to customize rewards for people. We used to always just kind of send the season ticket holders every same thing. We would send them a jersey, or we'd send them a hat or an autographed poster. But now, because we know so much more about our customers, you can build up points and you can win something that's important to you. If you want to go on a road trip with the team, you can build up points and you could go on the road for an away game. Or if you want a T-shirt, you can get that. So I think it's the technology that enables that to be really effective, because I think the generic ones are probably the ones that aren't as successful. We can really customize them, and we're investing in that now.
Thank you, Jordan. Next. Go ahead. Catch.
That's the first time I've done that. Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm an alum from 2014. You kind of alluded to this in the secondary market. So I'm a concert goer myself, and I've started to see a lot of artists limit resale. So if you can only get your ticket when you walk in, basically with your credit card. Have you guys started exploring that more so that you can capture more of that value? But then how do you also balance that with not making tickets too expensive for a lot of fans who can't afford secondary market prices?
It's complicated. I'll tell you, the most adamant person that I've ever seen on that issue is Adele, and we were very aggressive and then very fortunate to get all of her Southern California dates coming up in August.
Can you please give them to us?
I cannot tell you how many phone calls I've gotten on that show. So we have six shows at Staples Center in August, and she was absolutely adamant about wanting to limit the amount of secondary activity. You can never avoid it. As long as there is a hard ticket, somebody is going to resell it. And you would be shocked if you saw, and one of the things we learned from StubHub is how many people actually buy their tickets in the secondary market. It is so many more than I thought. Even for the Kings, when we were going through and having success a couple of years ago, and we finally did our partnership with StubHub, and we said, well, how many people actually bought their tickets on StubHub? And I thought, okay, there's 18,000 people in the building. I don't know how many people bought their tickets on secondary. I don't know, 500, 1,000? I mean, it was, it's 5,000 people actually got into the building with a ticket that they bought on StubHub. So she was very passionate about it. So there's certain things that you can do. You can go paperless. which is something that if you want to take it to the extreme, you can do that. And you buy the ticket on your credit card, and when you get there, you have to swipe your credit card to get in. But the rub there a little bit is, on the surface, it's a very fan-friendly position to take. And, Bruce Springsteen would do it, and Pearl Jam would do it, and Miley Cyrus did it when she went out years ago and did not like the scalping activity. There was a big report issued today in New York about ticket scalping and the availability of tickets to the general public. So it's interesting. The Department of Justice, I think, is starting to look at this also. Paperless is the only foolproof way to make sure that the person who purchased the ticket is actually the one who bought on the primary market, actually is the one who enters the building. But the rub with the artist is they want to be the fan-friendly artist, but they also know that there are millions of dollars being made on the secondary market, and they want their piece of it. So there's a few different ways that can be accomplished. So it depends on the artist, but there are things that you can do as a promoter and as an artist to minimize the amount of secondary activity, but I think it will be very difficult, if not impossible, to eliminate it.
And do you think the trend will be to cut back on the secondary activity? I just was at a show, I'm sure you can imagine, which one in New York, which has almost only a secondary market, and it seems like the sky's the limit.
Yeah, as much as you would like to think that, the 15,000 Kings season ticket holders are going to go to every game, when the Chicago Blackhawks are in town and they can get 5 times face value, they're gonna post that ticket, and then the Blackhawks score a goal, and you hear all these people cheering. You look around, and you wonder, how did they get in the building? These are all Kings. You look at it; these are Kings season seats. Why is there a woman in a red jersey cheering for the Blackhawks? But as long as the seat that you paid $100 for is actually worth $500, I think it's going to be difficult to eliminate it. But the best way to eliminate it the people at StubHub will tell you this, and they're exactly right. The best way to eliminate the secondary market is to price your tickets correctly in the first place. And then there would be no secondary activity, and then the artist would get all the money, which is where, the artist deserves it all anyways. Let's be honest. But again, there's that rub between wanting to be fan-friendly and not charge exorbitant rates. But if a Taylor Swift ticket is worth $500, Taylor Swift should probably get that $500.
Next question, please. Go ahead. This side of the room, there's somebody all the way at the back, so let's just balance it out. Go ahead.
Sure. Hi, I'm Bob. I'm Anderson class of 2000. I'm curious. You alluded a little bit to early stage technologies, Dan, but I'm curious what AEG's investment is in emerging technologies or efforts in emerging technologies. Dean mentioned Peter's investment in virtual reality. I'm curious if you're doing anything in that space or esports or any other emerging technologies.
Our investments right now in technology have been primarily around the ticketing space. We have a couple of small investments that we've made in, there's a beaconing technology company, there is a mobile POS system for food and beverage and merchandise that we've made a small investment in, a festival ticketing company that we've made an investment in also. So it's mostly been in the ticketing space. But I think as we continue to grow, there are probably other areas that we would want to invest in. One of the challenges, obviously, is the technologies can change pretty quickly. So even in a great ticketing platform, like a SeatGeek or Get Me In, you see these, or Game Time, you see these great applications, and you're like, okay, this is what we want to commit to. But when we commit to a system, it's 120 venues. It's a global implementation of something. So, investing in a company that potentially might have a better technology that comes out 2 years from now can be a difficult thing for us to do. So ticketing is a big one, and that's really where the bulk of our investment has come. And our investments in other technologies have been relatively limited in large part for that reason.
It's sticking to your knitting, I think, is the answer here.
That's part of it too, for sure.
Go ahead, back there. Introduce yourself.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Just to go back to the Adele example, sort of two-part question. One, do you think Songkick got it right in the UK when they launched direct-to-fan ticketing? And then the second part is around the data piece of it. So you've talked about the value that the artist should be receiving, whether it's Taylor Swift or otherwise. But what are your thoughts about sharing that data back to that artist who inevitably wants to remarket or retarget that consumer down the road for future things?
Yeah. We, and again, not to disparage other ticketing companies who sort of look at the data as their own, something that they want to monetize. We view that data, which is an extremely valuable resource, as they're our customers, they're the artist customers, so we have a pretty open policy as it relates to sharing data. And that's sort of part of our philosophy. And in the secondary market, you see it's not just the one fan who purchased the tickets, but it churns several times before, 3 or 4 times before it actually gets there to the concert date. But we think that it really belongs to the artist. And in terms of the first part of your question, sort of direct to fan, it's becoming a growing piece of the ticketing manifest that gets sold to fan clubs and directly. And I think you need to be flexible and accommodate that. And again, other ticketing companies who want to control sort of that pipe and own that customer relationship, I think are wary of giving up too much of the manifest. But the ticketing system really, historically has belonged to the venue, and I think that will probably always be the case. But we are much more flexible about allowing larger allocations to go to fan clubs, so they want their fans in their seats, and that's understandable because it creates an experience having their diehard fans up front as opposed to ticket scalpers getting their hands on them.
Go ahead.
Hey Dan, thanks for visiting us and thanks
you.
for turning around the Kings.
And
Totally appreciate it.
introduce yourself.
I'm Vahag Anderson, MBA alum and in entertainment. So I have a kind of a little bit high-level generic question. You're talking about the technology in the ticketing area, et cetera, can you make some comments about how do you see the competition being, especially, you got a number of LA teams with, you got Ticketmaster, you got, you guys, and kind of pulling a little bit of a different direction, both companies. How do you see that shaping up in the future, specifically for LA and maybe, some other markets?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be competitive. So I think ultimately that is going to be good for the consumer. And, we're all about providing choices. And you talk about ticketing, Ticketmaster, I can say it because you said it. So if you say it, then that's fair game for me to say it. But Ticketmaster has long had a philosophy of having exclusive venue contracts. And it's the way that, so any event that comes into a venue has to ticket through that ticketing system. And in the old days, I think that could actually make some sense. You had to hardwire the buildings, and you have these, in the box office, you had these green screen terminals, and you had to sort of wire the building in order to do that. So I can buy that in 1985. But things have changed and technology has changed, and you buy tickets mobily, and you can scan. If you have an iPhone, you can scan your ticket at the door, and the scanners are also on iPhones. So I mean, it's that capital investment that you need to make isn't what it used to be. So having a non-exclusive ticketing model is probably something that our ticketing company would consider and probably be okay with, and not say, look, you have to use my system, and you have to use it this way, and these have to be your service charges. I think we are more open to an open model where if an artist wants a particular system because it has certain purchasing features, or we're developing a lot of purchasing capabilities for sharing on social media and allowing multiple people to buy tickets at the same time, via an invitation. Say, I have 8 friends who want to go to a concert, and we have an application that enables 8 people to come in and buy their tickets and all sit together. So if an artist sees that and says, wow, I really like that feature, I think I want to use that ticketing system, I think we would probably be okay with that. And but I do think it's going to be competitive, and I think there are lots of venues, and there's more venues coming. So I think there'll be competition. Their model is a little bit different than ours. They're not a real estate bay. They don't own sort of the hard assets, with the exception of maybe a couple of amphitheaters, but certainly not in the arena space. So their bundle is the bundle of ticketing services and live music content. Our offering is a little bit different. We have a bit of a different philosophy, but I think at a high level, I think there'll be more ticketing companies, because I think technology is evolving. Ticketmaster is a very old system that was built 1 million years ago. It works, but I think ticketing has evolved, and we see it now. I mean, even our festival ticketing company is different than the ticketing company we use for our arenas and our clubs and theaters. So I think there'll be the evolution of the business and new entrants into the market, and hopefully that means choice for consumers and for artists.
I'll take the prerogative to ask the last question. You know, at Anderson, we talk about our 3 pillars or our 3 qualities of sharing success, thinking fearlessly, and driving change. What does AG stand for, and how does it relate to those qualities? Would you want to have people in our alumni community, graduate community, who manifest those qualities?
Yeah, I think if I had to boil it down, and when we speak at big employee events, I think we only have 2 pillars, but the 2 things that we talk about as an organization are teamwork and collaboration, because we are
sharing success.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, I'm looking in the audience. I see Ron Turner in the crowd there, who is from Gensler, who's the best architect of these districts and done a lot of work with us. So he's part of the team. So I think teamwork and collaboration, both with our external partners and our employees and our staff and our management team, we all work together exceptionally well. So I think that's a big part of it. And then innovation. And it doesn't have to be just technological innovation, although that, as of late, that's really become a key focus of ours. But it's innovation in how we do business with our teams and how we build our venues and our entertainment districts. But I think those are, if we're looking for people who are big thinkers and people who can work as part of a team, those are probably the 2 most important things for
Well, and
us.
thinking fearlessly and driving change is definitely about having innovative ideas, but then also implementing them.
And that has to be part of it. I mean, that's a key. I mean, big thinkers without a great team who can make it happen are just good ideas.
Well, you're it. You share success, think fearlessly, and drive change. Make us very proud as an alum. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And welcome everyone to the conference.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.